OS detection, trolling your coworkers, and a little 90s nostalgia. All that and more this time on Hak5.
If you've got a great idea, you should do what Shannon and I do and head over to domain.com and register your domain, bring it over to the internet using this super awesome discovery system that brings domains from your mind onto the web over at domain.com. They've got a quick and easy checkout process, and they've been supporting Hak5 for years. You can also tweet at them at domain.com and say, hey, thanks for hooking up the guys, and they've got a special treat just for you. You get to save 20% off at checkout over at domain.com using the super secret coupon code. It's HAK5. It spells Hak5, and it's just between you and I, all right? Don't tell anyone. Okay, you can tell people. When you think domain names, think domain.com.
Hello and welcome to Hak5. My name is Kerby Kitchen.
My name is Shannon Morse.
It's your weekly dose of technolust.
That's right, it is. And I'm having some beers today.
Me too. Cheers, guys.
Cheers to our fallen soldier. I did not know you were going to do that.
Just tipping one for the homies.
Tipping one for the homie. You know, I have to clean up the studio.
I'll clean it up in a bit.
Okay. I think we should go right ahead into the segment this week.
I'm excited because
I am too.
This one's all about trolling, but it's also about...
It's some 90s nostalgia.
And it's a little bit about like bash and...
Some education.
A little bit of Nmap scripting.
I like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to troll your friends. I know I did, way back in the day. Just to show them that they are loved. I don't know about you, but back in college, I loved setting a screenshot of the desktop as the Windows wallpaper and then disabling the icons, and then I would just watch them double click everywhere, and they would freak out because they would think that nothing was working well. Or you could flip the entire display upside down.
Oh yeah, what was that, like Windows Alt or Control Alt left and right if they had an Intel
Yeah,
graph?
it was one of those.
That was a fun one.
Way back in the day. So to celebrate this mainstay of computing and love, we are featuring a novel cross-platform Bash Bunny payload that's sure to make your coworker's day or completely ruin it.
And you definitely hit the nail on the head with that special word, cross-platform, and I love that aspect of this because today we're actually building on our discussions from the previous week. I know last week we talked a lot about extensions because, you know, payloads are even cooler when other people can use your work and make it all, you know, easier for them. And today we're looking at a really cool technique for OS detection, which would actually make a really cool extension.
Okay, so what do you mean by OS detection?
Sure.
Operating system detection.
Well, you'll probably remember, actually I'll just come over to this payload here. Let's see, under library and recon, I'm here on my Bash Bunny. There's an Nmapper payload. It's a really simple payload that I wrote. Here, I'll open the README. Okay. And you can see basically what it does is it scans the target with Nmap right here, whatever, using the specified option, and then it saves the log to mass storage. It's a really simple payload. Now, by default, it's configured for Windows, and if you know, so it's like set up for RNDIS. And if you want to use, if you want to target Mac and Linux machines, you just have to swap the Ethernet to ECM Ethernet. So there's like a bit of
instead of RNDIS.
Exactly. There's a line of code right here. See where it says use RNDIS for Windows. Linux and Macs use ECM Ethernet. So you can pretty much just, if you know that's your target, you uncomment that, comment that, whatever, Bob's your uncle. But what this Nmap payload actually does is whatever your options are. And the options that I set by default are TAC-O, TAC-TAC fuzzy. And Nmap, I mean, it's kind of your go-to port scanning utility, as well as many other things, can determine what the operating system is, or make an educated guess about what the actual target computer is running, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux, Unix, BOS, whatever, based on different fingerprints, like you know what ports it has open. You know, like a Windows machine might have port 139 open, or 443 open, or 44. Anyway, you see what I'm saying?
Whatever it might be.
Yes. So it's pretty cool that you can do OS detection with Nmap.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so depending on what Nmap finds, you could add some additional intelligence to your payload to run different things if the target is a Mac or a Linux box, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, this payload in particular could make use of what we're about to get into because it does.
This is useful.
Yeah, it is. Here, let me give you a little example. So the reason that I actually have in this this is a very early payload for the Bash Bunny. It's kind of one of your like, I guess you would call it like a launch payload, right? It's a nice example of like, oh, here's a payload.
One of the simple things that you can do.
Right.
Kind of like what I show up on Hacktip all the time.
Totally. And this is just one of those beautiful things where you're like, hey, just make it show up as an Ethernet device.
Okay.
And then just scan the target and save the results. It's a good, like, as a template, because you're like, oh, cool, so this is, you know, like this function right here makes your loot directory based on the host name. Actually, that should be put into this actually really should become a snippet, extension.
Yes.
You know, like a make loot, MK loot snippet or something that would just, you know, you see what I'm saying is, but anybody can just, you know, copy and paste this and use this thing. But this particular payload, you know, I have to say, like, okay, hey, if you're attacking Windows, use RNDIS Ethernet, and if you're attacking Linux and Mac, you got to use ECM Ethernet.
So why is there that difference there?
Right. So the Bash Bunny emulates USB Ethernet, but there's two different primary standards for USB Ethernet.
Wow, so the different operating systems don't use the same standard.
You would think, but why?
You would think that they would, because that would make sense.
A little backstory on it. Basically, the first standard to come about for using Ethernet over USB, for the most part, was made popular by Microsoft with their own proprietary protocol called RNDIS. It stands for Remote Network Driver Interface Specification, and and it's proprietary to Microsoft. But basically, on all those I think it's Windows Vista and above, you would plug this in, and if it's had that USB descriptor, and if it said, "Hey, I'm an RNDIS device," then Windows would be like, "Cool, a network interface."
Cool, you've just authenticated by telling me what you are.
Yeah, and the driver.
I'm not going to double authenticate.
Yeah, it's like the driver's built in. It's like when you plugged that keyboard and that mouse into the new keyboard and mouse you got for the editing rig.
I didn't need to know the admin password. I was just able to plug in the keyboard and mouse, and they automatically worked. Yay, USB rubber duckies.
Well, yay, any device that has built-in drivers. Yeah,
right,
absolutely. You know, like inside baseball.
It just works.
Our editing rig over there does not uses a regular Windows user account, doesn't run as administrator because you shouldn't be running as root.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And Shannon was able to upgrade the keyboard and mouse without needing that. And similarly, you could plug in a Bash Bunny if it was set up as RNDIS, and it would just be like, oh, cool, you're a network.
Yeah.
Now, where this differs is, since that's
Mac
a
and
Microsoft,
Linux.
So Microsoft uses their own proprietary protocol. Mind you, a lot of people have reverse engineered it and kind of come up with their own variation of it that works similarly enough to just work.
Yeah.
So actually, while I say ECM Ethernet is for Mac and Linux, a lot of Mac and Linux boxes will actually understand RNDIS.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like your more recent versions of like Ubuntu, for instance.
But to cover your butt, whenever you're working with a Bash Bunny, since you don't know specifically what operating system your target might be using, you probably want to specifically state if it's going to be ECM or RNDIS, right?
Yeah, exactly, because ECM, or Ethernet Control Model, which is the Linux-specific one, will always work on Linux and Mac. So they have that driver installed by default. Sometimes they have the RNDIS driver installed. Windows boxes, since, well, Vista, have always had RNDIS drivers installed by default,
I see.
and very rarely have ECM drivers installed at all. So that's why it's important to just know your target.
Okay.
So then it brings up the question of like, okay, cool, but what if you go to your friend's house to troll them and you don't know what they're running?
So basically what you're saying is this payload tries Mac and Linux first, since they both use and speak ECM, which totally makes sense. And then if that fails, it switches to RNDIS in case it's Windows box, right?
Yeah, basically. Here, let's take a look at that payload, because I think it's
makes
actually
sense.
a really novel technique. So let's go under prank, and it's called Win93. We'll get into that in a minute. And check
It's called
out
prank.
Yeah, it's in the prank folder. So all of the Bash Bunny payloads in the library are categorized by like if they're for gathering credentials or doing remote execution or doing some exfiltration, things like that.
Pranks are my fave.
And pranks are great, like 90s mode. We've talked about 90s mode. It's a fantastic prank. But this one,
Windows
I think
93.
of all things for it to be a prank, and yet there's some of the most ingenuitive. I'm out of words today. I'm having a tough one. I'm also having a beer.
Yep.
We're looking at payload.txt here, and basically what this does here is it has multiple stages, and this first stage right here is just going to go ahead, and you can see here it sets the attack mode to ECM. So it's like, hey, okay, cool, I'm targeting a Linux or a Mac box here, sleeps for 3 seconds, then it uses the get extension to get an IP address.
Okay.
Then it says, yo dog, if you did not get an IP address, so that's what that tac Z in the if statement is.
Yeah.
If you didn't get an IP address, then it actually echoes out into a log file, which is pretty cool. It creates a log file and it says, hey, no target IP. Then it says checking if it's a Windows host.
Ah.
Sets the LED to special. Sets the attack mode to RNDIS Ethernet. Actually, hang on, that's a typo. Let me fix this guy's
Do you think
typo.
he did that on purpose?
You mean like how sometimes people will put payload, like what is it called, typos on purpose to like prevent script
I
kiddies
feel
from using
like
their
people,
tools?
sometimes your elite hacksaws put typos into their code to make sure that script kiddies aren't just copying and pasting. But I don't like the word script kiddie because I think everybody starts somewhere. And in order to figure out what you're doing wrong, at least I did when I was learning HTML way back in like middle school, I would copy and paste, and then if I had an error, I would have to go through and find that error.
Yeah, and you would have to Google it, or in your case, you would have to Lycos it because we're talking about HTML in the 90s.
For me, I would just have to figure it out myself because I didn't understand Google at the time.
Yes.
Or Yahoo,
you know
or whatever there was at the time.
I was a script kiddie.
I was a script kiddie too.
I need a t-shirt that says I was a script kiddie, and
we
I will
were
wear
all
that
script kiddies at one
DEF
time.
CON. You know, here's to the kiddies.
Here's to the kiddies. I agree.
Getting back to the payload here. Now, I don't know if that was on purpose or if it was just a typo, but either way, what it does here is it switches over to, and actually, beautifully enough, I can just fix this and then submit a pull request, and then it gets fixed. You know,
Yay!
Beauty of open source.
Yay, GitHub!
Yay, GitHub. So it sets the attack mode to RNDIS Ethernet, waits 3 seconds, then checks for an IP address, and if it doesn't get one, then it just does an LED fail and exits, which is brilliant because you're like, hey, if you didn't get an IP address, if the victim computer that you plugged the bash bunny into didn't get an IP address from the bash bunny over ECM Ethernet or RNDIS Ethernet, you're not.
You can assume that it probably won't run on that specific
Nothing's happening
computer.
Here. Yeah.
It's not going to work.
You could actually recreate that by just like plugging this into a USB battery pack.
Oh, right, because obviously it won't run on the battery pack. It's not going to have that operating system.
If your battery pack gets an IP address from the bash bunny,
you should probably watch out. That's funny.
Oh, yeah. Next on auditing Anchor power supplies. Are you getting pwned? So anyway, you can see where this is going. Basically, once it finishes the first stage, it goes ahead and launches that scan, and then it greps through that scan, right? So it actually, in stage 2, it switches over to an attack mode HID to start injecting keystrokes, and it actually uses grep tac-I on that log file that it created, and it looks for the word Linux, right? And if it sees the word Linux, then it goes ahead and says that in the log file, and then sets OS equals Linux.
Okay.
Great. Similarly, if it's a Mac, actually, funnily enough, it has to do something funny here for the Mac. It has to do a grep with attack V with MAC address before it actually pipes that to grep again for
So what is that doing?
Mac. Grep-V or TAC-V is saying, hey, like, grep that out, like, ignore that.
Oh, okay. And
yeah,
that makes sense.
Show me everything except for.
Because it's going to see MAC address like all throughout the code. So obviously you just want to know if the operating system is a Mac.
Yeah. So it's, in this case, looking for a Mac as in a Macintosh rather than Mac as in media access control addresses.
Got it.
Either way, real simple. It then goes ahead and says, hey, if all that worked out, if it gets this, then go ahead and set OS equals Mac. And then down here, it also does the same thing for Windows, and if it sees Windows, it sets OS equals Windows. And then boom, $OS, that variable says, hey, in this case, Linux or Windows or Mac, host detected, and then appends that with the Waka Wakas here into your log file. It's pretty cool that this actually has a log file. And there we go. Then it goes into the third stage where it can actually start executing those things. So those first 93 lines, except for the comments, basically are figuring out what the operating system is, and then assigning it to a variable called $OS in this case.
So I feel like, okay, hold on. So I think that's really cool, but doesn't the get extension work that way? Like you say get target IP, and then it exports target IP variable with an address? So I could imagine that this code being put into an extension that could just like export the OS for you so that you don't have to include those tons and tons of lines of code in your payload, right?
Yeah, that would
work.
That's kind of why I'm bringing this up. So you're following me along.
Are you telling our viewers to make an extension maybe?
I could probably just put this in and finesse some things and make it a little prettier, but that's basically
that could be useful though. That could be super
everyone.
useful, like for other payloads too, not just this one specifically for the Win93 payload. But if other people are looking to target a specific operating system, they could use an extension that says like get OS or get operating system, and then run the payload depending on which OS it is. So that way you have an extension.
Totally similar to
Save yourself some writing.
You know how the run extension will say like you can specify Windows, Mac, or Linux, and then depending on that, it will know how to execute that command. Say that command is a website. You could do run win a website or run OSX a website, and then it's going to inject the keystrokes that are appropriate for that operating system.
Right.
This would be kind of the inverse of that, and then hey, couple those together and you really got something.
That's cool.
So I'm bringing this up because I would like to see this finessed some more. I know that there are definitely faster and more efficient ways to do this. So if you're watching at home and you have some ideas on how to improve this, please chime in. We'd love to see an OS detection extension.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that this payload has detected the operating system, I want to know exactly what it's going to do, because Win93 sounds fun, but I'm not really sure quite yet.
Okay, so basically,
you gotta show me.
All right. So here we are. We're finally in stage 3, right? And what it'll do here is it says, it echoes out to the log file that it's starting it, and then if it actually uses a bunch of if statements here instead of like a switch case. I don't know. I use a switch case.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
That's a beautiful thing about
They both
programming
work.
is there's a million ways to skin a cat.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, if the OS equals Mac, then it's going to go ahead and run OS X. Hey, there's the run extension. Opens up the terminal and then tells it to open Windows93.net and then uses this little OSA script to full screen it. Similarly, if it's Linux, if the OS equals Linux, it will go ahead and it'll actually open Xterm and then use Chromium browser. So this, with the incognito and a new window and start full screen parameters. So if you have Chromium installed, it's going to open that full screen to Windows93.net. I gotta say, I would just use, I would do it this way. I would actually say run Linux or Unity, and then just the browser. And then I would just do like a sleep 1 or like a quack, or sorry, not quack, but quack delay 1,000 or maybe 2,000, 2 seconds.
Quack. Quack. There we go.
And then I would do F11 because on most browsers, every browser that I've ever seen, F11 does full screen. Either way, it pulls up this website, goes full screen, and similarly, actually it says here if OS equals Windows, then it just does a fail and then says, hey, it's not supported for Windows yet. I could actually say that's actually really simple. Just do run win there you go. That's actually all you need to do.
That's it?
Although, however, I will say,
will it work?
.exe tac-k, you would have to put this in quotes, of course, and then you would have to perhaps, I don't know if you have to escape the forward slashes. I don't think so. But
I guess
anyway,
we'll find out when we try to run it.
all Windows machines have iExplore.exe on them, unfortunately, but it has a tac-k option for kiosk, which does your full screen for you.
That's funny.
So I'm just saying, hey, there you go. And then the last bit is to just clean up and sync the logs. But
I want to run it. Can we run it?
I guess. You know what I actually want to do? No, we can, but you know what I actually want to do? I want to just pull it up because I'm feeling a little lazy. I am. I don't feel like rebooting my Bash Bunny. I've got some other stuff going on it right now. But I only just discovered Windows 93.net due to this payload. And this is what you get. Actually, it would be with F11.
Right. Oh, man, that's so good.
And this is basically like what Windows 93 would look like, which is like halfway between Windows 95 and 3.11.
Look at the giant menu. That's so funny.
I've never even seen
I think you
half
should
of this
double click
stuff.
on hamster. And pull up the volume.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's so good.
This is terrible.
Right. We're gonna get like kicked for playing that file, the audio. They're gonna get mad at us.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, but ski-free runs
so funny.
ish. Yeah. Oh, I was terrible at this game growing up. What else is on here? They've got there's so much good stuff
That's
on this.
awesome.
I have no idea. I need to get rid of that. Oh, I got to run a defrag. Yeah, let's start that defrag.
Welcome to defrag. Oh my gosh!
Good times, man.
That's
Good times.
amazing. That's so funny.
I love this so much. I found the Reddit thread where this came out, and it was
you
just
already
about
killed yourself.
I think this is a version of Minesweeper where you can only ever die. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm actually really impressed by the Wolfenstein 3D clone. It's actually pretty on mark.
What?
Yeah, I don't know why I did.
Man.
And the Facebook, although control isn't. I need to remap the keys, but you guys get the idea.
Oh my goodness.
Man, there's so much good stuff in here, like a virtual PC.
This is so beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to run the virtual PC all day long.
I can't wait to prank
And then
some
inside
people.
that, I should run virtual PC.
Well, I can't prank anybody that watches the show. They'll know exactly what's going on.
You guys get the idea.
I can prank my husband though.
Oh,
he
he's
doesn't
gonna love
watch the
this.
show.
Yeah.
Is this an ongoing thing now? Is like, oh, my husband doesn't watch the show. I can prank him.
You can pretty much do whatever. I mean.
Oh, I love it. That's so great.
Yeah, your significant otters should definitely not watch the show.
No, definitely not. No significant otters allowed.
Yes. Oh, man.
So I actually know what can make this even better is we got a comment from Chris Evans on episode 2301, and he recommended a very specific command that would add an additional feature to this.
Oh.
You want to spell it out?
Yeah. This is a really good one. This is picking up from that episode where we inadvertently discovered that there is a Nyancat. I was going to say payload, Nyancat package for Ubuntu or for Debian.
Just through apt.
Yeah, and also it would make a brilliant payload for trolling, especially if you add in this command. If you do x input, xinput list, you can see these are all of the different. I've got a touchpad, and I've got a touch screen, and I've got a synaptic touchpad here.
So I see what it's doing. It's giving an ID, kind of like a PID number to each input device that you have plugged into your computer, whether it's a touchpad, keyboard, or mouse, etc.
Right, and while you could do
Webcam
all this fancy stuff here to get the ID number out, like in this case 14. For my particular AT keyboard, AT translated set to keyboard, which is what they will all be listed as, because the AT, and if you know what that means, it's not having to do with
Star Wars.
Yes, it's AT-ATs or ATSTs if you're a fan of those. No, it actually has to do with my first and favorite computer, but I'm going to leave that as a discussion for the comments.
Right, you're old. So.
I love the AT. I'm actually not old. I just got like a really crappy computer as a kid.
I know the one you're talking about. I think my dad had one of those in my nursery.
Yeah, PC-ATs were awesome, and the keyboard port was insane. It was like the size of my head. You would have to use two, plug it in and have all these pins. It was insane. How are we here now with USB 3 and everything?
That's
anyway,
so great.
Basically what you do here is you can use X input, and you can basically disable this. So I've got my ID here, and actually you can replace the ID with the word AT translated, but I'm just going to do 14 here. And I put the sleep statement in to have it sleep for 10 seconds.
Okay.
And then I have it also do an X input enable 14, because if I don't, I'm going to be very upset because, here, I'll just go ahead and run it. So I'm pressing the Windows key, and you can see, pressing super brings up this menu, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and run this, and now I'm
Oh no!
I'm jamming on that key, Shannon.
And it doesn't do anything. It's completely disabled your keyboard.
Completely disabled it.
That is so funny. Oh yeah,
and now it came back.
Now it works.
Because the 10 seconds lapsed. But, that would be nefarious.
Awesome.
Do that to your friends.
Yeah, send them to Windows93.net and then disable the keyboard input.
You would have no choice but to either reboot your computer using your mouse, which is a pain if you have a lot of documents open that you need to save and all those things.
That's so wrong.
Or you could open up a help file with your mouse and then find the letter X and copy that and paste it into the terminal, and find the letter I and copy that and paste it into the terminal. And you see where I'm going with this.
I hear hamster dance. It's still playing. I'm just going to hit the little...
You could type in X
mute.
input, enable,
there we go.
Whatever your thing is, your AT translated set.
That's awesome.
By just copying and pasting letters from a help file.
So do we have something special for the person that sent
absolutely.
that in?
In fact, let's check this out, because this payload, as they all should, it comes with a readme.md file, and it says that the author is Gled. So we're going to go ahead and get a hold of Gled and hook them up with a $100 gift card over at so that they can get their own Hak5 gear.
Awesome.
There you go.
Hopefully your email's in GitHub.
I hope so. Otherwise, get a hold of us in the feedback@hak5.org. That's how you can get a hold of us directly.
And then anybody would be able to get
And then everyone's going to say, hey, I'm Gled. And then we're going to say, hey, put this key inside of your GitHub. And if it exists, we'll give you the code. And if not...
There you go. Yeah.
This is very time consuming.
It's like a PGP key.
Yeah, kind of like that.
It's ridiculous.
You can find our PGP keys at hak5.org/keys.
Well, mine's on Keybase.
It's a forwarder to our Keybases.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He made the website.
I actually keep them on the hak5.org site as well. Hak5.org is where you can find all of our gear as well. Just click on the store or the gear up at the top. And it's where you can find out information about all of our events, as we will be having an event, a big event, a very exciting event in October.
Don't tell them the date. We don't have the date yet.
It's either the 20th or the 21st.
We have not scheduled the venue yet.
If we get it in time,
we will post it on the website and on all of our social networks.
Yes. So pay attention, and if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area and want to see this awesome new Hak5 gear,
then come to our event once we secure the venue, and we will release the details.
Yeah, you could get yourself, for instance, a Wi-Fi pineapple. Like, here we go. Like, I've got this Wi-Fi pineapple touch right here. Or you could grab it Nano.
Yeah.
And here's a fun thing about setting up any of the new Wi-Fi pineapples. I don't know if you know this, Shannon, but inside every Wi-Fi pineapple is a little Easter egg.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every single pineapple that's ever been made.
Oh.
Or at least the 6th generation. At the setup, so after you flash the firmware, this is gone, but it lives on every fresh unit, which is, if you go to 172.16.42.1:1471/Kerby, or it might be Kerby.jpg, you get a lasting memory of Kerby, the faithful companion of Hak5 and our cat for like 16, 17 years, who is now gone to kitty heaven.
Yep. She's over the Rainbow Bridge. Wow, this is the first time I've cried on Hak5.
Okay, we should probably
I'm going to leave it in, because
okay.
Sorry.
We miss you, girl.
Yep. I ran out of beer, but I'm going to cheer her anyway. Cheers. To Kerby.
Hi, Kerby. Interesting to be saying goodbye to the, hey Kerby, to the studio.
Yeah, the studio as it is, yeah.
But we will be bringing you Studio 2.0 and all its glory. Hopefully we have it all set up by the time we're shooting.
We'll give you what you want.
And I think Kerby is going for the new position as awesomest IPTV kitty, so Lab Rats, Biff and Boo, eat your heart out. We will see you on the other side. In Half-Life 2 Deathmatch. Yeah,
that's
you want to tell us about that, Shannon?
Well, I think that since we've gotten on Revision 3, they haven't been introduced to Kerby.
No, they really haven't.
I mean, she's been on the live cam, but she has not actually been on the show. So
yes.
this
You
is
two
Kerby.
can F with this cat.
She doesn't like to be held. I'll put her down now.
Jesus. Awesome.
All right, well, maybe we can get some
Must
cinder blocks
do.
up in here.
It boots up before the system menu, so you have that control. They've done it already on 12 different Wiis, and they haven't bricked any of them yet.
Hello, welcome to Hak5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
I'm Matt Lestock.
And I'm Shannon Morse.
And there goes Kerby. This is your weekly dose of Technolust, and we are bringing to you guys an awesome show this week from Williamsburg, Virginia, in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
Cat. Kerby just jumped on the very expensive console thingy that we use to switch live HD.
It always does that too.
I know.
That was
That's
awesome.
exciting.
Anyway,
Paul
so
with the save.
and on this episode, we were bringing to you some awesome virtualization, some little bit of mod stuff, and some open source goodies.
Yep.
Right, video editing and all sorts of fun stuff.
It's like everything of
That
everything.
wraps up this episode of Hak5.
Yay! But first, we did want to remind you to check out next week's episode. We have tons of cool stuff coming up.
Yes, J-Bomb, or Jason Applebaum as he's otherwise known as, will be back in studio this time
He hates that so much.
doing a little Nintendo DS homebrew development. That's going to be awesome.
Hey, I love homebrew.
Do so on Twitter at twitter.com/Hak5.
What's Kirby's Twitter?
That's actually twitter.com/Hak5Kirby. Yes, it
Hak5
really is
Kirby?
there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so
and
Twitter
I
has
forget-
mine.
I forget who has the account, but whoever does, please send that to me. I need to put a bot on it.
Yeah.
Kirby, you like Perl scripts, don't you? That's right.
Aw.
And
We also have a Facebook. It's facebook.com/Technolust, and you can find all of us through that.
back to feedback@hak5.org. Check out the forums, and tell us what you want to see, and we make it happen. That kind of stuff. So, anyway, this one's gonna get spicy. So until next week, we're reminding you.
Trust your Technolust.
The secure socks.
What are you
It's got
looking
the cutest
for?
icon.
Oh. She was like, she's running around back and forth in between us and Pa, and I'm like, is there food? I don't see any food on the floor.
Yeah, you know when in Spaceballs when they went plaid. I feel like in podcasting we just went kitty.
Meh, kitty.
So with that, we should probably move on. In just a bit, we're going to be talking about certificate authentication with SSH tunnels, why it's important, maybe a little man-in-the-middle action, we'll see. And but first, I do want to thank our awesome sponsor, GoToAssist Express. Really cool. Kerby loves it, and basically, it's going to give you, as good an image as the camera can create. You're not going to get any loss of quality since it'll be digital the whole way. And we did run into a couple of issues with their software. They had this piece of software called On Air, which would allow you to do camera mixing between two different sources. They've since discontinued it. We had some problems. And
No?
can we find out about their technical for a week?
Sure.
Hello and welcome to Hak5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
My name is Shannon Morse.
It's your weekly dose of Technolust.
And this is brought to you by Kerby.
Kerby is a part of the Hak5 family and has been for over a decade now. So
Oh my gosh, it has.
she's a proper woman. She's a lady. She's a lady cat.
She's, what, 15? Wow, she's up there. We're glad that she joined us on today's show, but we have a ton to get to. But first,
Of a P25 Packet Analyzer. Are you trying to type on? She's just V key over and over. Sorry. It's a packet. Imagine like Wireshark, but for P25. Was it 12 kilohertz or megahertz?
do you know Kerb?
She doesn't really. She's not into the megahertz.
No.
She's into
just wants
megapets. Mm-hmm. Megapets per
fancy.
second.